NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place you tune in. So tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.
Knicks family, what's poppin'? It's your boy. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us tonight. And yes, we're kicking off our Keep 'em or Dump 'em series. We're starting with Julius Randle. We're also going to do Obi Toppin today. You know, I figured, hey, what the heck? We might as well do them both since we're doing this power forward position. So let's go ahead and get started. I got Steph in the building. I got Tony in the building. And, yeah, we about to knock this out. And before we even do that, though, I know that some of y'all caught me earlier accidentally going live, you know, reacting, making faces, and all kinds of stuff because I was watching Friday Night Lights while I was setting up the stream. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it is. What you going to do, man? It happens. I didn't even get a chance to watch it back. I heard it was funny. I didn't even get a chance to watch it back because I deleted it because I actually got to, you know, they blocked it because the Friday Night Lights thing was showing and all of that. But, hey, you know, what you going to do? It happens. Tony, what's popping with you, brother? How you feeling?
Hot Mike Sim was good. Queen, peace queen. Yeah, we got the gang back together. I'm happy, man. It feels like it's been a month. You know.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a while. You know what I mean? Steph, how you feeling?
I feel good, Sam. Feel really, really good. Like Tony said, it's good to be back because I'm not sure when the last time all three of us were together. So it's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this show.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it was the last time either. I don't even remember the last time I've been live. Luckily, I'm glad I got the schedule up now. So, you know, keep me on track. You know, just making sure I'm consistently going live. You know what I mean? But yo, if you haven't seen Friday Night Lights, it's actually a good show. It's about football. You know what I mean? I started the season. Well, actually, I started the show a couple of weeks ago. I watched all of season 1, and I'm on season 2 now. You know what I mean? And so while I'm doing work, I just watch it. You know, a lot of times I'll be watching the news, but I get tired of watching the news and just reporting on crazy stuff going on. So, you know, I was watching it.
Hey, so luckily that's a popular show, so I'm sure a lot of people knew what you was watching.
Some people knew, right?
But I did not. And let me tell you, that made it even more hilarious. Because I'm still trying to figure out what you watching, or what you listening to, because it was jumping from a bunch of different topics. But
yeah. You know how those shows go. You know, they following different people. From what you was telling me, that, you know, the part that you caught, I mean, was actually a hilarious part. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna repeat it. You know what I mean? I ain't even gonna repeat it. But let's go ahead and get into. And I know B-Baller for real said I didn't delete it. I did delete it. I actually didn't watch it back. I didn't even I just seen it. I was like, oh snap, let me delete this before YouTube, you know, before they take it down, and then I get a strike. So I just got rid of it as fast as possible. You know, I wish I would have went back and watched it. You know, but anyway, let's talk about, before we get into Julius Randle and Obi Toppin, Jalen Brunson is going to play in the FIBA World Cup. You know, and he played, I don't know, when was it? You know, whenever it was, 2000, I don't remember the date.
Yeah,
but
was it under 18?
Yeah, the 19 under. He played in the FIBA World Cup and he won MVP. Wow. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that. Yeah, but he played. He won the MVP. And he's going to play again. He's been invited to play again this year. I mean, when you look at what he's done, coming from the Mavs to the Knicks and then what he did in the playoffs, it makes sense that he would be invited to play. You know what I mean? How do you feel about Brunson playing? I've seen some people say, I'm happy he's playing, but I would rather he not play. Any concerns at all about Brunson playing, or, you happy you get a chance to see him this summer?
I'm happy I get a chance to see him, but I'm also happy that he's getting that type of recognition in the NBA as well. So, yeah, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad he is too. Tony?
Without giving everything that I feel away, I'm gonna agree that I am happy that he's getting the recognition. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big recognition for to play for your country, and not too many people get to do it. So I'm trying to take the positive approach, but there's there's negative sides, there's positive sides, and on Knicks and Bruises, I'm gonna give a deep dive into all the different aspects of it. But I'm definitely proud of him. I think it's a good look for him.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I think it's a really good look, especially you get a chance to play with a high level of competition. Not that he's not playing in a high level of competition, in the NBA and with the Knicks, but over the summer, you know what I mean? You play pickup games, you work out, you play pickup games, and those pickup games, they're not going to be as competitive. You know what I'm saying? So I think, it's a good thing for you to go, do the FIBA World Cup, play with some high-level competition, continuously, just sharpen your game. Plus, he's going to be there with Mikal Bridges. Maybe he can drop a dime or two in his ear. You know what I mean? But, yeah, I do like when guys play throughout the summer and, like in the Olympics or whatever it is, because I feel like they can come back sharp, right? Ready to play. They may not get a chance to rest as much as you would like, but I do think they come back a little bit sharper. I know when Melo, when he was with the Knicks and he played in, whatever it was that he played in, I mean, he came back. I mean, I think he won the scoring title that year when he came back, right? Of course, he came back to a team with Jason Kidd and, a bunch of other guys out there. And so, they had a really, really nice team, won 50 whatever games. Right. You know what I mean? They were shooting threes all over the place. But Melo came back sharp. He won the scoring title. I think he averaged like 28, 29 points a game that season. I'm not saying that's what Brunson is going to do, but I just think, you go there, you stay sharp, you come back in shape. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back even a little bit thinner.
I was just gonna say I was just gonna say that was the slimmest that we seen. That was the peak. That was the start of Slim Melo. That after that year or during that year, like he came in to the season super slim. You know what I mean? And usually he kind of gets slim during the course of the season.
Right. Building Block said, please, no major injury where we will be missing our point guard for a long time. I definitely agree with you there. We don't want any injuries. When I look at, anyone can get an injury, but when I look at his body type, he's got like a Carmelo Anthony body type, but the size of a point guard. You know what I'm saying? I don't see him getting a lot of being often injured. Just with his body type and the way that he plays. He's not above the rim. He's not, major speed, type of player. It's more, footwork and craftiness. And a lot of times those players don't suffer major injuries, in my opinion. Obviously, anything could happen. He could step on someone's foot. He could, twist up his knee. Anything like that could happen. But for the most part, I think he's going to be one of those guys that's healthy, all the time. Tony, you was getting ready to say something?
I'm laughing at the chat. Who's that? Deron Wayne. He said it didn't help Fournier.
I'm not sure if they used Fournier in a defensive aspect either. You know what I mean? They used him for scoring. But Brunson ain't Fournier. I think it'll help Brunson. I think he's gonna come back in shape and ready to go. You know what I mean? Especially, if they win it, he's gonna come back, he already has a winning mindset, but he's gonna come back with that mindset like, yo, let's get this done. You know what I'm saying? I feel good. I'm in shape. Let's get it done. You know what I mean? But any other thoughts about Jalen Brunson before we get on to keep him or dump him? Starting off with Julius Randle.
No.
All right, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we want to know what you think about. We're getting ready to move into Julius Randle. So what you think about Julius Randle, keep him or dump him, but call in 516-362-51212. I'll make sure that I put the number in the chat so that you can call in. We want to hear what you're thinking about Julius Randle. All right. So let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the keep 'em or dump 'em session. Julius Randle. All right. The most, it's such a, it's crazy. It's like it was with Frank Ntilikina with Julius Randle, as far as the fan base. You know what I mean? Probably far worse than it was with Frank Ntilikina. And Randle himself is such an enigma, man. It's something, but the regular season, Julius Randle, 25.1 points per game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 53% from the field, 45. Well, that's wrong. He didn't shoot 45.9%. 45.9% from the field and 34% from three, while 70% from the free throw line. So those are a couple of mistakes there. 35.5 minutes per game. All right, and I'll make sure that I fix that. In the playoffs, 16.6 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 37% from the field, 25.8% from three, 71% from the free throw line, 33 minutes per game. All right, he's a two-time NBA All-Star. He made the third-team All-NBA. He had his highest points per game in his career over the last season. He struggled in the playoffs, just came off of arthroscopic ankle surgery to his left ankle. So there you go. That's Julius Randle. All right, we're going to talk about keep him or dump him. I do want to ask you this, though. Tony, I'll start with you. I don't even know if I got your thoughts on Julius Randle. We did a show about Julius Randle a couple weeks ago, giving him a grade. I'm not sure if you were here for that. I don't think you were here for that. He got a B, from the chat and from the panel. But what are your thoughts on just, what would your grade be for Julius Randle? And then what are your thoughts on his ankle surgery? Does his ankle surgery, does it take some of the sting off of the playoff performance? Go ahead, Tony.
I think a B is a fair grade. I actually agree. I'm surprised, that the consensus between the chat and the panels and everything ended up being a B. Mm-hmm. Just from observing and reading the chat throughout multiple platforms and Bleacher Report and etc. So I think a B is fair. B for bounce back, because like that's the biggest thing that I think he did. In last year's definitely regular season. And a lot of people coming into the season, like, that was one of my questions. Like, do you think he could bounce back? And the consensus wasn't too short. You know what I mean? Wasn't too positive. So I think a B is a fair grade. And as far as the surgery and the injury, for me personally, it didn't change anything. It only kind of validated some things, and maybe in my hope, maybe change others' opinion, because to me, I thought it was a fair, like, a lot of people were discounting the injury. Oh, he's not really injured. Oh, he had time off. I don't want to hear about it. But to be honest, like, listening to our chat, other chats, and just watching the playoffs throughout, I've heard the injury excuse or justification or whatever you want to call it. I've heard the injury thing been mentioned for numerous players throughout the playoffs, and I felt like for Randle in particular, it was being discarded, and so for me, I felt it didn't change anything because I already felt like he was playing through pain and he didn't look like himself. And a lot of people attribute that to him just not being the same player in the playoffs as he is in the regular season. But to me, he just didn't look like the regular Julius Randle. He looked like he was playing through pain. So it just validated more than anything. Didn't change my opinion.
Okay. All right, Steph, what about you as far as his injury?
Yeah, I don't think the injury changed what I thought either. I didn't think the injury was 100% why he played the way he played, and I still don't think it's 100% why he played the way he played, because you could be injured. I'm not talking about scoring points. You cannot score as much points. You cannot be as explosive. I get all of that. I just wasn't feeling his floor game. I just wasn't feeling just other aspects of his game that I felt didn't have anything to do with the ankle. So, yeah, I still feel the same. I thought it was a factor, but I didn't think it was 100% why he played the way he played.
Right. And go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
I just want to add, because I agree with you 100%, Queen. But I think another part that people didn't really want to give the credit for was who Miami is, right? It was a lot of talks of playing team or eighth seed and who, like the record and the ranking, as opposed to who they are traditionally, who they've been, the past 3 years. So I thought that was another part that I think I was looking at as far as contributing to Randle's struggles. Like, that's a good defensive team. And I mean, even in the Cavs, you're talking about 2 all defensive forwards, right? At the other end, you know what I mean? So I think I kind of looked at a broader perspective, I think, than most people, in my opinion.
Yeah. As far as the injury, I mean, I kind of feel like, I guess I'm one of those people that feel like if you're injured, don't play, right? Even during the Cavs series, there were some people who were like, he's kind of injured. He looks like, he still might be injured. I thought he looked like he still might be injured because when he played, I thought he was tentative. Like in that first game when he played, I thought he was tentative. The way he was going to the basket, it looked like he was being patient, but I thought he was just being tentative. I didn't think he attacked the way that he would normally attack, when he would see a lane to the cup or something like that. And he had 19 points, 10 rebounds. He didn't really shoot the ball well. And there were a lot of people that gave him, all right, you know what, I'm going to give him a break on this first game because he's injured, so on and so forth. Me, I just always feel like if you're out there on the floor, that means you're healthy enough to play. You know what I mean? I expect you to play. And if you can't play, then don't suit up. I've always felt that way. If you can't play, don't suit up. And I do get it that, maybe the coaches, maybe the staff, whoever feels like, listen, 80% of Julius Randle, 75% of Julius Randle is better than what we have. But there's other aspects to it too. And so the surgery doesn't really change the way that I feel about his performance. Because I just feel like, if you wasn't ready to play, you shouldn't have stepped out there on the floor. If you stepped out there on the floor, then, we expect you to give everything that you have. I mean, I respect the fact that he wanted to be out there. Some people will say, well, it was just selfish. He wanted to be out there for him. Some people will say, no, he wanted to be out there for his teammates. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to assume that he wanted to be out there with his team. That's going to be my assumption. I'm always going to try to assume the positive. So I do respect that. But I don't know. I feel like he probably, okay, I can understand you came back versus the Cavs. I think in game 5, when he twisted his ankle in game 5, I don't think he should have came back versus Miami. Right? I think right there it should have been like, all right, I just did this for the second time. You know what I mean? I'm not coming back. I'm gonna let this heal. And I know it's hard. That's got to be hard for a player.
And Sim, think about he didn't play the first game against Miami, correct?
Right.
So and then we lose. So now it becomes even more of a pressure situation. Like, all right, do I leave my team hanging? We just lost. Like maybe if they win game 1, he sits out another game or sits out. You know what I mean? But once they lose game 1 at home, you know what I mean? I think mentality wise, or you know what I mean, it just changes things. Like now you feel even more pressure to not leave your team hanging.
I agree.
And again, I mean, I can never sit here and be like, oh, he played well, you know what I mean, and act like he did what I expected of him, you know what I mean. But I still try to look at circumstance and things surrounding the situation to add to the total viewpoint.
Yeah. Nah, I think you're right. You know what I'm saying? It definitely adds to the pressure of it. Like, oh, we lost game 1, and you feel like you have a chance to win the series. Right? So it's like, we got a chance to win this series. Yeah, we got to put him out there on the floor. Let's because he's the only other guy that really draws attention. So we got to put him out there. I get that. Steph, you was getting ready to say something?
There's some things I saw with Randle that didn't really have anything to do with the injury. And I think, some fans have been probably seeing it well before I have, but just the lack of engagement, the emotionally not being there, just, I don't know. To me, it just looked like more than the ankle. So I don't know, maybe he was really down because of the ankle and he couldn't perform the way he really, wanted to perform. Maybe that was it. But emotionally, he just looked done. Like,
I agree.
Like he was just going through the emotions emotionally in terms of just looking at his face. And then I was like, I mean, if you don't want to be out there, then maybe you should, go to the bench because, I get it. Your ankle, you can't move the way you used to, move, and maybe you're more of a decoy, and maybe you're attracting a lot of attention, but you're moving the ball and you're just doing different things to help the team. Maybe I need to go back and look at the games.
No,
But in terms of what I remember, I just didn't see that.
Yeah, and I agree with you because, like, throughout the season, I didn't see that Julius Randle, like, the disinterested, right? Because I remember, I think I asked Tony on one of the post-game shows after the Knicks lost game 3?
Game 2 or 3? Game 3.
Game 3.
It was game 3.
Because the Knicks won game 2. I asked Tony, you think Randle's scared to play against these dudes? Because, he had that kind of look to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just didn't have, he just wasn't, he didn't have the same pop. He wasn't arguing with referees. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something that he normally does. The energy, it just wasn't there. I was like, is he scared to play against Bam and these dudes? Is he intimidated? And the only thing I can say is, and I'm not using it as an excuse for him. The only thing I can say though is you never know how, someone is injured and they're like, damn, man, I can't even play. And he's already an emotional guy. He has emotional swings. You know what I'm saying? And it gets him on this emotional swing where he's down and he can't bring himself up. You know what I mean? Right. And if that's the case, like, that's an issue. That's, because you got to be able to, all right, I can't go. I don't have the flexibility. I can't really push off on my ankle. I can't do this. But I'm out here. I got to figure out how to play on it and be effective.
And that's why when to your credit and others, when you say if you're too hurt to play, don't play, or you know what I mean, that's the only argument that I have no retort for. You know what I mean? Because I get it. You know what I mean? If you're not 100% and you can't will yourself to victory, if you will, you know what I mean? I get it. But even on the flip side, as that athlete, you know what I mean? Like, how do your teammates look at you? You know what I mean? I seen people, I mean, and it's true, talk about, oh, well, Brunson's playing through an injury. But again, at the same time, we're talking about Randle, who had to work his way back to play in the playoffs and then got re-injured. You know what I mean? Like, so they're not even looking at the compound. They just looking at it like a straight comparison, when to me it's not. So
Right.
so now, to your point, you don't want to let your team down. You have a teammate that's injured, that got hurt too. Now he's fighting through it. You know what I mean? So again, all these things become a mental, and I'm not talking about his mental, but it becomes something that weighs on you mentally, something you got to weigh and conflict with yourself. Do I fight through this? Do I not? Am I helping? Am I not? And all that. So I just think it was a tough situation for him.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get more into it in the dump them and keep them
Yeah, I mean,
part.
I just think, yeah, he wasn't there, mentally. He wasn't there mentally, and I think that part of that was the injury. Right, I do. I think part of that was the injury. That's why he wasn't there. You've got to figure out how to. If you're going to be out there on the floor, you got to figure out how do I be effective, and how do I keep myself engaged emotionally. And also, if you're the coaching staff and you know that he is struggling in those areas, do you try to, not struggling in the emotional area, but you know what his ankle is? You say, well, let's put him in a position that maybe it's not, he doesn't have to use it as much. You know what I mean? Because, a lot what the people point out every time they look at him not hustling in the playoffs was, times that he turned the ball over and he didn't get back. Right? He turned the ball over and Brunson was getting back and he threw his hands up in the air. People point to that, and he should have got back, bottom line. You know what I mean? But some people will say, yeah, maybe he couldn't run back. Maybe he was scared that his, what he was going to do on his ankle if he made that hustle play back. So that's why I asked the question, as the coach, should you have said, maybe let's not have Randle bringing the ball up like this because he can't really move to avoid the pressure. We'll have someone else doing that and put Randle in another spot. Have him off the ball. That way, he doesn't have to run back if he turns the ball over or something like that. I mean, do you put any of that responsibility on the coach? Steph, I'll start with you. Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I put all of it on him, all of it on the coach, because sometimes you gotta save players from themselves, right? Mm-hmm. I think a coach's job is to kind of see if the guy has it or not, and to Tibbs' credit and to, I think, most Knicks fans' surprise, we seen him sit Randle in a playoff down the stretch in a playoff game, and us get a victory in that. So you know what I mean. So yeah, I think more than Randle, because 99 times out of 10 times out of 10, he's probably going to choose to play if he thinks he can anyway. So sometimes I think the coach has to make that executive decision and be like, you don't got it today, or maybe you need an extra day or extra 2 days. Don't play this game, got a day off. You know what I mean? Extra 2 games to heal, whatever it is. So I think it's fair to put blame on the coach too.
Okay. All right, Steph.
I don't know about sitting him for the entire game, because I can understand a coach saying 75% of Randle is better than 100% of Obi. So, or whoever else we would play in that position, RJ. perhaps, because if we move RJ to power forward, then we got to move. There has to be a corresponding move. So I get that part, but I think during the game, you know, um, not having him bring the ball. Well, I don't think he was bringing the ball up anyway, because Brunson was out on the island, by himself. But I think, maybe there was some things the coaching staff could have did during the game. But as far as him not playing, I don't think I can blame the coaching staff for playing him. He was able to run up and down the court. He looked he looked fine, running up and down the court. So he may not have been 100%, but knowing Tibbs, think about it. Think about how he rolled RJ until Josh Hart got here.
Yeah.
Then when Josh Hart got here and he had better options until injuries resurfaced, RJ Barrett's numbers was limited right after that trade. So I think if he had other options, I think he would have, that he felt comfortable with, I think he would have done that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This is gonna haunt Julius Randle most of the summer. I mean, his playoff performance is gonna haunt him most of the summer, man.
Most of the summer.
Most of the season too.
Most of the season. Like there is no redemption until he's back in that situation.
Right.
Even the first team All NBA is not a redemption.
Yeah, because we've seen it.
Until he performs in the playoffs. Right. Until he performs in the playoffs. Call in, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my bad. Call in, ladies and gentlemen. 516-362-5212. All right, I put the number in the chat, pinned to the chat. So you got the number there. We want to know what you think about Julius Randle. We're gonna get to, do we keep him or do we dump him?
Can I give a request for Mr. Kenny Payne to please call in? He's saying he's gonna dump MBK.
I seen it.
So call in and tell us your feelings on Randle and tell us why you want to dump us. You know what I mean?
I seen it. Do we, if you are the front office and you're sitting down, you're looking over the season and you're saying, okay, we won 47 games. We won 6 games in the playoffs. Maybe we feel like, we could have done better in the playoffs if Randle showed up, if IQ was able to play against Miami, maybe we do a little bit better. But we did take it to 6 games. We went down 3-1, took it to 6 games. You're looking at saying, okay, how do we get better? And when you're looking in from that lens, how do we get better? And so you ask the question, do we keep Julius Randle? Do we dump him? Right? Looking at the lens of getting better. All right. Randle, his defensive rating for the season, 113.9. 4th on the team. All right. And that's based on those who were in the rotation. Okay. Because there's a couple of guys who weren't playing who, like, I forgot who it was, but he was the number one, had the best defensive rating on the team, but didn't play. Forgot who it was. Okay, based on guys who played, Julius Randle, the 4th best defensive rating on the team. The 7th best offensive rating on the team at 116.8. And his usage rate, as much as Jalen Brunson has the ball in his hands, Julius Randle's usage rate was 29.8, and that was number 1 on the team. And that surprised me. That really did surprise me. So, just based on everything we have here, we have all this information in front of us. His stats for the season, stats for the playoffs, his accolades for the season, defensive rating, offensive rating, and usage rate. We have all this information. Do you keep Julius Randle? Tony, I'll start with you. Are you keeping Julius Randle or are you looking to say, I want this guy gone?
To make it simple and plain, I'm going to keep him. Mm-hmm. But I will not. If they're dumping him, it has to be. I think the consensus is it has to be a clear-cut improvement, right? It has to be a clear-cut, better player slash plus better fit, right? Because one of the things that I value, which the Knicks seem to value now, which we haven't throughout the years, is stability, and keeping him is part of the stability. You know what I mean? As opposed to bringing somebody in and kind of retooling and relearn. Somebody has to adjust and see how they fit in and everything else. So my simple answer is keep them, and I'm only dumping them for somebody better. Me personally, I'm not shopping him because I think the best offer you get for Randle is the guy calling for him, the team calling for him, as opposed to you saying, I want this guy, I'm willing to give you such and such. You know what I mean? So if teams are asking for him, that means the ball's in your court. You know what I mean? You can start demanding what you get back. To me, when you dump in somebody, you don't care what you get back, and I'm not at that point.
Okay, and I think that's right there. I think I agree with you, right? If you're dumping someone, you're like, man, just give me 2 pixie sticks or something. You know what I mean? and you could have them. Steph.
Yeah, I'm keeping him, but with a few caveats.
Okay.
Number one, I'm keeping him, but I no longer view Randle as a go-to player on a championship contending team, which we're hopefully moving toward. So I see him as we need to find somebody else that can be a go-to player with Brunson. So Randle could be a high level, and I'm not saying this disrespectful, but a high level role player. And that means that third option who can have big games, that third option who could drop 40, drop 50, but he's not a go-to guy. So when I think of third options like Drew Holiday on Milwaukee, he can drop 30, he can drop 40, but he's not your go-to guy. When you
Right.
think about all the other third options on championship contending teams, they can go off, they can have a good game, but that's not the guy you going to. And I think, obviously things can change. Next year he can go into the playoffs and just blow up and change everything. But right now, I just don't see Julius Randle that way. So I would keep him, but I would move him down. I would recast him. His usage rate would be lower. Like I would bring somebody else in where Brunson and whoever this guy is, if we can get him, would have a higher usage rate than Julius Randle.
Yeah.
I just think he's miscast on this team, and it's no fault of his own. We just don't have any other guy at this point. And as far as trading him, I think I would take somebody who may not be better than Randle, but he's a really good player, and his fit would make the team a better, potentially a better team. Right. So whereas before it was, for me, it was clear. Now that guy got to be as good as Randle. That's kind of come down a little bit for me. He just needs to be very good. And maybe we can make changes somewhere else around the team that'll make us better. So that's where I'm at.
And Queen, I mean, I agree with you to an extent, right? Like, because I've been saying this for a couple years now. You always used to yell at me about fit compared to talent. So I agree with you. There are a few options out there that they may not be a better player, or it may be a lateral move, so they're just as good, but the fit may be better. And I see where you're going, because what you mentioned earlier, it makes it even difficult moving him to that. I don't want to say to the third option, but his best attribute is his scoring. You know what I mean? So when you mention like a third option, like a Drew Holiday, where arguably, yeah, he could give you 30, but his best attribute is defense. You know what I mean? Even
True.
a guy like let's just say Michael Porter Jr. I wouldn't say he's their third best option, but
Mhm.
his attribute, you know what I mean, becomes shooting. So his role gets put right into that box of what we need from you. I don't. So are you saying Julius Randle as a third scoring option,
Yeah,
or
because think about
less?
RJ. Look at what was RJ? I think RJ had the third usage rate
Third best usage
on the
rate.
team,
Yeah.
and he still got up a lot of shots.
He just wasn't
RJ.
efficient.
So I'm not. Yeah, he was just inefficient. So I'm not saying like Randall would be on the team and he would only get 6 shots like a Grimes. No, he would still be a big part of our team. But we not. To me, he's just not that go-to guy. He was still. We're counting on him to score and rebound, and maybe with less usage, he could be a bit better on defense because he can play on the defensive end. But he carries a lot of the load for us on the
Right.
offensive.
And see, me personally, I never, from the time that Randles got here, I never viewed him as a number one guy.
Yeah.
I never
What about
thought.
2?
I did view him as possibly a 2 guy, definitely
okay.
a 3 guy. I never viewed him as a go-to guy. I always looked and said, but based on who we had on the team, he was the best that we had at that point in time. So this is how you had to use him, right? And I still don't look at him. I know he averaged 25 points a game. I still don't look at him as a go-to guy. And here's one of the reasons why I don't look at him as one of those type of guys. It's still hard for him to score. He gets 25, but it's still a task for him to score. You know what I'm saying? Like, he works really, really hard to score. You know what I mean?
Shot maker.
Tough shot maker.
Shot taker.
You know what I'm saying? He's got a bullet's way in. He doesn't have just the natural, like, boom, bang, I can score on you that quick. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have a mid-range jump shot. So if he's not hitting the 3, he's got to pound his way to the basket. And this, in my opinion, takes a toll when you're talking about, like Steph said, you got to carry a lot of the load. It takes a toll on the other side of the floor. You know what I'm saying? Anyone who's played a lot of basketball knows when you're out there and you really got to work hard to try to score, you get to the other side of the floor, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you. It should be the opposite way. It should be the other way around. You work harder on defense, you play easier on offense. You know what I'm saying? But then, of course, what your responsibility on the team is means something. You take some of these guys that can score easily, right? And they can all, your superstars, they can score easily. They just, it's not a task for them to score the ball. So they can still come down and give you this effort on the defensive side, at least in those moments. Because I remember, Steph, we were having that conversation. No player in the league is going to play 100%, at least not your stars, 100% on the defensive side like that. But in the moments that you need them, they're going to be there.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And that's why I never could view him as a number one. To me, a number one guy has a mid-range, can kill you in the mid-range if they need to. Obviously can go to the basket, can knock it down from 3. They don't got to have the greatest 3-point percentage, but when you need the shot, they're going to make the shot. You know what I'm saying? And I don't view him as being that guy. When you need it, he's always going to make it. It's iffy. You know what I'm saying? You go to the line, you can count on it. He's going to hit 1 or 2. You know what I'm saying? You can count on it. So I never viewed him as that kind of a guy. I always viewed him as the holdover until we get that guy, but that he was going to be moved down the chart.
There you go.
I always viewed him that way. And that's why I never got mad, because people would be like, yo, why should we keep him? Why are you built? I'm like, I'm not building around Julius Randle, but this is what we have right now until we get that guy in and you move him down the chart.
There you go.
So my question is, because I agree, I never viewed him as a number one guy. I always said he's our number one guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you could put him on any team in the league and his role is gonna be that. But my question is, like Queen said, number 2, because I think Queen is saying now maybe move him down to 3.
3. I don't even see him as a 2.
So my question to you, Sim, is what are your views as far as number 2? And if and I guess my question to Queen is, if he's number 2, and obviously we need another guy in, is Brunson 1 or is Brunson sliding down as well?
But let me just say this real quick. 1, 2 to me doesn't matter. Basically, I believe that to be a successful team in this league, you got to have 2 go-to players. 2 players that you can go to in crunch time or when you need a basket. You can call him a number 1, you can call him a number, you can call it whatever you want. I just feel like we can't go to Randle in those situations. Sometimes he comes through, like in Indiana when he hit those 6 free throws in a row, switched out on Halliburton twice, and played good defense. But for every one of those games, there's 2 games where there's a turnover. I just think some guys just don't. That's just not them. Like that's just, they could still be an integral part of a championship team, but that's just not their role. They're not. I'm not going to say he's not comfortable. They just don't come through. He's just not there yet.
He's not
so
there.
That's why I'm saying a number 3. Basically, I'm saying I don't think he's one of the top 2 players that I think you need on a championship contending team. Where he falls after that,
And this doesn't mean that he doesn't give you 21, 22, and 10.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that he doesn't give you that.
So you agree as well, as far as moving him down to the third, number 3?
I mean, I think so I don't think it would be that the coach is going to come in and say, "Oh, you're the 3 guy now." It's not like that. You're going to have players on the team, and naturally it'll take place.
Right.
Okay.
Because like naturally he moved over for Brunson, in my opinion, right? He's seen down the stretch of games, oh yeah, he's the guy. I'm gonna give him the ball and get out the way. And I think the same thing would happen when you bring in another guy.
Right. And to Brunson's credit, I think a lot of times, maybe to the detriment or whatever, but Brunson still, he let him eat too. You know what I mean? Down the stretch. And you know what I mean? So it was more of him being the decision maker. And this is why I still am, as I'm still comfortable with him being the number 2. My only caveat to it is strengthening around him. You know what I mean? So if the shooting around him was a little bit more consistent, you know what I mean? I think that would have changed things a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm just not ready to say he got to be moved down to number 3. But I'm not opposed to it either. You know what I mean? Because that just means somebody else here is better. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this. So basically, you're saying we don't really need to bring in a quote unquote star. We don't have to bring in somebody better than Brunson or Randle. Basically, what you're saying is those 2 guys can get us a championship. We just got to put better shooting around them.
I was using shooting as an example of just something that I thought could have been a difference maker, but I don't want to limit it to that. And I also don't want to say, I think somebody could be on equal playing field or somewhere in the middle of where Brunson is and Randle is, or somebody equal to where Randle is. You know what I mean? And Brunson still is that main guy, decision maker, and he's gonna be clutch down the stretch. So I think there's a bunch of different ways we could move forward. I don't think that, you know what I mean, it has to be all chips on the table. I think there's a bunch of different ways you could go. And there's a lot of when you go all chips in, the risk becomes a lot bigger as well. You know what I mean? Like, so when you tweak things, you can fix those.
Yeah.
When you make that big move, it's harder to fix, and then you gotta live with it.
Okay. I mean, I want to get to some people in the chat. I'm gonna get to the caller we have on the line in just a second. First of all, a couple of people. Shaw Legacy said he disagrees that Randle not having the mid-range. Who else? Someone else said something about him having the mid-range. Quiet Money said that Randle lived in the mid-range in his previous All-Star season 2 years ago. I look at it like this, the same way a lot of people look at the playoffs, right? The same way a lot of people look at the playoffs. And I'm gonna ask the caller to, keep it. I'm gonna ask the caller to keep it down in the background, please, as we're trying to talk. Thank you. Quiet Money said Randle lived in the mid range. My thing is this: if he was that confident in his mid range, he would have used it in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? When you look in the playoffs, when Randle caught the ball, Miami's whole objective was to pack that paint and not allow Randle to get to the cup, get into the paint. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, Randle was stuck. If he had a mid-range, in my opinion, he could shoot the mid-range. And he's had nights where he was good. I don't think he's as confident as you would look at some of your other players and just consistently going to that mid-range. And I think that really affected him in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? What he did in the mid-range this year was create fouls with that sweep through, right? He created a ton of fouls, but it didn't happen in the playoffs. You know what I mean? I think if Randle's going to take his game to another level, it's that mid-range that's going to get him there, in my opinion.
You don't think that has to do with the and I hate to do it, but the coaching and the coaching philosophy, because it seems like this is Tibbs adjusting to the new NBA and emphasizing 3-point shooting and getting to the rim and somewhat not encouraging the mid-range. He spoke about it numerous times. And I kind of agree that prior to like this year, maybe even last year, Julius, like that was his bread and butter, the mid-range. And
See, I don't think it was his
it
bread and
picked
butter.
up. He kind of started focusing 10 threes, 8 threes a game, 10 threes a game.
Yeah, but I don't think the mid-range, I felt like getting to the basket was his bread and butter. I didn't feel like getting the ball from the elbow and knocking down that elbow jump shot was really his. I didn't feel like that was his bread and butter. I felt like it was him getting to the basket. You know what I'm saying? When I look at a mid-range game,
he started in the mid-range. I'll say that.
Yeah, he started there. I'm talking about
the
scoring.
jump shot
there.
was an option, but you know what I mean. The getting to the rim was an option, but where his focal, like his offense started and focused right in that mid-range, and then where it led. You know what I mean?
Right. It started there, but I'm talking about him knocking down shots from that mid-range area. Like you look at DeMar DeRozan, right, knocking down shots from that mid-range area. Devin Booker knocking down them little fadeaways and pull-ups from that mid-range area. That makes you, in my opinion, a better scorer in the playoffs because that paint's going to be packed. Defenses are going to be better. And if you have that consistent type of mid-range shot, it makes you that much more dangerous. You know what I'm saying? I seen a question. I must have forgot to star it. I think it was Trav B. Ryan said, we haven't seen the final form of Randle. Do you agree?
I mean, playoffs, yeah. I mean, are we talking about his skill set or are we talking about his performance? I think his skill set, he really cleaned that up this year. I think he was very efficient in terms of where he took his shots. It was only like maybe 4 places on the court he took his shots. His skill set to me is okay. I think have we seen the best of Randle in the playoffs?
Okay. Right.
Can he still get better in the playoffs? And I think he can. I think the Knicks just don't go there enough. Like some of these guys have been to the playoffs. Randle has 16 playoff games for the Knicks.
Yeah.
Some of these guys got 20 games, 30 games. They go every year, so they know what it's like. They have that playoff experience. He doesn't. Mm-hmm. So am I totally giving up on him that he won't become a playoff performer? I'm not.
Yeah.
Am I confident that he'll be a number 2 guy? I'm just not confident. That's just me. That's just how I feel internally. Yeah. But yeah, he can get better in the playoffs. I've seen guys do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can. As a matter of fact, everybody counted him out. After his first season with the Knicks, he was counted out, and then after he had that crazy season with the fans, you know what I mean, he was counted out, and whether or not he could come back and come back stronger. I think this is another challenge, for him to do. You know, I've been pointing to Jimmy Butler for the last couple of weeks. And if you go back and you look at Jimmy Butler's playoff performances, you know what I'm saying? Up until 2 seasons ago, Jimmy Butler literally averaged 18 points per game in the playoffs on 42% shooting and terrible three-point shooting, right? Literally. And he had seasons where he averaged 13, 14, 15. I mean, just 2 seasons ago with the Miami Heat, he went into the playoffs, averaged 14.5 points per game, shot 29% from the field. You know what I'm saying? And, of course, he bounced back. It's just been recently, the last 2 playoff appearances from Jimmy Butler that he's averaged 28 points per game. Up until the last 2, it's been 18 points per game on 42% shooting. You know what I'm saying? So if anyone is an example of how you can get better. Now, of course, Jimmy Butler's he's been in the playoffs like 13 or 11 or 12 seasons. So you're going to have some bad performances. You're not going to be a perfect player every time. Well, I mean, some guys are. LeBron and them type of guys are. But, you know, you're not going to be perfect every time you step out there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, you know, he's, you know, figured out how to be a really good playoff player now. But he's 32 and 33 years old. He's figured it out. You know, I'm not saying Julius Randle's going to go that route, but that's an example of a guy who has been up and down in the playoffs, really hasn't been that great in the playoffs until recently, but now everyone is like, oh, well, Jimmy Butler shows up in the playoffs. But if you go back into his history, you might say, oh, maybe he didn't actually show up. And in that Minnesota series, he kind of checked out, to be honest with you, because he didn't even want to be in Minnesota no more. So, you know, there's some hope there that he can get better in the playoffs, you know what I mean? And it's another learning curve for him. Tony, you was going to say something, then let me get to the phone call.
Nah, go ahead and get to the phone call. I lost my train of thought.
But just real quick, you might be right, Symbol. When that trade comes across your desk, then you got to say, you got to be like, do I think he's gonna you got to weigh it. Right. He might not. You got to make a decision in real time.
Nah, no doubt about it. You do. You got to make that decision, and that's what happened with. That's what happened with Jimmy Butler, right? Because every place that Jimmy Butler went has been drama. You know what I'm saying? He's been at the center of it. And so teams had to decide, do we keep him or not? Or what do we do? You know what I'm saying? And
Philly didn't keep him.
Yeah, right. And you know, people had to make that decision. Now, of course, he's doing what he's doing in Miami. He's had his problems in Miami too, but he's doing what he's doing in Miami. You know, and teams might look back and say, man, if we would have kept him, maybe he would be doing this for us. But no, you're right. You got to make a decision. You know, what are we doing right now? You got to make that decision, which makes it tough. You know what I mean? Makes it tough. Caller, you're live, man. Tell me your name and where you're from, please.
Listen, man, you know, it's Isaiah, you know, Big Bubba. I've been waiting for this one.
Hi, Isaiah.
Everybody.
Miss you, man. How you doing?
Queen, what up? I'm doing good. I wanted to jump on, but I'm making a bookshelf for my girlfriend. She, for a business.
You're making it. Hold up. Wait a minute. Are you making the bookshelf, or did you get it from the store and you're putting it together? Come on.
Wait, I'm building it. I'm building it. I cut the wood. Oh. I did. I'm gonna show you a picture of it, and you're not even gonna believe I made it. I did it.
Okay. Well,
he went from scratch.
I'm gonna ask.
Do you want me to get her on the phone? I can get her on the phone and tell her to ask her that I make the bookshelf.
I am gonna ask your girlfriend to please put magazines on it. Don't put no heavy books on that junk. Just put magazines on it.
First of all,
and coloring
it
books.
Is a great bookshelf. It's sturdy. It is great.
Put magazines and coloring books on it.
I'm gonna send you guys some pictures. You can be like, I made it. Right. I made it.
All right. Go ahead.
And make sure you put a 20-pound weight on it.
Listen, I'll put myself on it. How about that?
He better nail it to the wall. Better nail it to the wall, man.
Oh man.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Listen. Everybody knows how I feel about Randle. Everybody knows. Me and Sim been going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this. Is Randle most likely going to be on the team next year? Yeah, I can admit that he's going to be on the team. But let me say this: he doesn't need to be. He shouldn't be on the team. Because Steph said something that's very important. She said, can he be a third option? Steph, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think he has the basketball IQ to be a third option.
Wow.
I don't think Randle can even handle having the responsibility of being a third option. Because the pressure that comes with being a third option, the intelligence, the sacrifice, I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can be a Kevin Love or a Chris Bosh. I don't think he can be those guys that sacrifice their game for the betterment of the team. Took the scrutiny, and still made those little dirty winning plays. Again, everybody talks about Ray Allen's shot. They don't talk about the rebound on Chris Bosh.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you, though, because he already did it.
But
he was already that guy.
No. He went from being the first option to a second option. There's a big difference from that.
Wait a minute.
There's not that much ego.
Before he came to the Knicks, he was a third option, not even a third option. He was a role player, and then he was a third option in New Orleans and gave you 20 and 10. He was already that guy.
And he was the backup to Anthony. He's the backup to Anthony Davis. I mean, he was a sixth man.
There was also, I think Lonzo Ball was there. And he was the guy that had the ball in his hands.
Lonzo wasn't there yet. In New Orleans.
It might
this was before Drew
Holiday.
But I thought it was Lonzo and Drew Holiday there. Maybe it wasn't. I thought.
Well, Lonzo. Remember Lonzo got traded for Anthony Davis.
Oh, you might be right. Yeah, but Drew Holiday was there.
Right, but this was before Randle blew up, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of feel what he's saying as far as the sacrifice part, because when he was in New Orleans, he wasn't a star. You know what I mean? Now, since he's been to New York, he's basically, considered a star. Will he be willing to sacrifice and his role and his usage rate down to 3? I think he will, because I think he did it with Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
But his usage rate is still almost 30%.
But see, I don't even know if that's on him, because Brunson has the ball and then it finds its way to Randle. But I don't even know if that's on him, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And to be more fair, look, I can admit that was the ankle a factor in him playing bad in the playoffs? Yes. I won't sit here and just say he wasn't. But there was still an intelligence to Randle's game that just wasn't there. I'll even say that the closeouts, I'll give that to the ankle. Even though it was very lackadaisical, very just not even trying, but I'll give it to the ankle. There were just, to me, Randle's basketball IQ just wasn't good. Even let's go to the final play. When he should have been cutting, but he runs into Gabe Vincent. I think it was Gabe Vincent or something, and missed the cut. I mean, stuff like that when it comes to Randle, the turnovers.
The turnovers always on the passer, right? You know that, right? The turnovers always on the passer.
I mean, the pass.
Right? I mean, Tony,
the pass shouldn't even have went there. The pass shouldn't have went there. The pass should have been back up top to Josh Hart. It shouldn't have went there. Regardless if he cut, the paint was already packed. The paint was already packed. You don't pass it into 4 players. I'm sorry. The paint was already packed.
Okay. You want to blame it on the 40-point Jalen Brunson? I got it.
I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just telling you, if he went baseline, there was 2 guys there, right? He went baseline.
He runs into Gabe Vincent.
That was actually Gabe Vincent trying to cut off the passing lane.
Exactly. And Jalen Brunson,
Gabe Vincent trying to cut off the passing lane.
When Jalen Brunson started dribbling baseline, he should have kicked it back up to Josh Hart, who was wide open at the top of the key. There shouldn't have been a pass into 3 players. I'm sorry. That's my opinion.
True. And Josh Hart should have relocated as well.
And Josh Hart should have relocated. Yeah, exactly.
And it's not blaming Brunson. He literally carried us back to the opportunity down the stretch. But let's be real.
No. I understand that. I'm just saying.
You're going to say Randle should have cut harder or should have cut. He actually was trying to catch up to the ball to prevent the actual turnover. If you want to recall the play, I'm just saying.
If you listen, Tony, if you want to give him that, okay. I'm just gonna go bid shot selection in the playoffs and things like that. Again, you don't become one of the 5th worst players in shooting percentage of all time in the playoffs. I mean, that's a stat that we have to do. We have to talk about it. It's a real thing. It's not an ESPN stat. It's a real stat. So, listen, when it comes to me personally, we've seen players like him go into the playoffs and just don't show up. I mean, we're talking about for example, DeMar DeRozan. People are still waiting for him to have a good playoff series. And he's kind of like Randle, perennial All-Star, All-NBA kind of guy, master of the mid-range. Playoff time comes, he doesn't show up.
See,
he doesn't show up.
See, but this is where, and
but hold on, so can I find out where you got for this?
But hold up, this is where, and Steph alluded to it earlier.
He shouldn't be his first option.
I mean, but not even about the first option. He's talking about DeMar DeRozan. How many times has DeMar DeRozan been in the playoffs?
A lot of times.
A lot of times.
He's been in the playoffs almost every. He's now just not going into the playoffs because he's with the Bulls.
Right.
But he's been in the playoffs He's been in the playoffs every year.
Right. So he's had DeMar DeRozan has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 playoff appearances. Right. Randles had 2.
A lot of playoff appearances.
Randles had 2. So you can't definitively say he's going to be like DeMar DeRozan.
Okay, Sim, but here's the thing, right? You alluded to Jimmy Butler, right?
Yeah, and DeMar DeRozan, by the way, hold up. DeMar DeRozan, by the way, 23.9 points and 13-14 in the playoffs, 20 points per game, 14-15, 20.9 points in 15-16, 22.4 points per game in 16-17. Can I get some field goal
percentages in there? Can I get some?
Yeah, let me see. 40%, 40%, 43%, 43%, 48%.
Come on, Sam.
You asked for field goal percentages.
Come on. Yeah, it's terrible.
48% is terrible?
But one season, Sam, okay.
43%? I mean, that's not great, but it's not terrible.
And your argument was he never had a good playoff series.
I mean, to this day, Randle hasn't. We still, but I'm gonna say this, for the 16 games, we're still waiting for the Randle game. We're still waiting for those games where he plays a little bit. Listen, I'm not saying that you got to play exactly like you play in the regular season, but for God's sakes, man, can Randle give us one game where he averages his averages in the regular season? When it comes to that, again, Randle, man.
I'm just saying. When you compare him to DeMar DeRozan and say, well, he's never had a good playoff series, so Randle's not going to have one. I don't know if you can say that because you just don't know. It's only been 2 playoff appearances.
And you just referenced Butler, Sim.
Butler, but here's the thing.
Right.
But Tony, here's the thing with Butler. Butler's 33 years old. You're going to tell us we got to wait 5 to 6 years for Randle to beat Jimmy Butler? Is that what we're gonna do? Because if we do that,
I didn't say you had to wait. All I said is that he's had some bad playoff performances.
Yeah, yes, but
that's all I said. He's had some bad playoff performances, and in the middle of those, but hold up. But in the middle, it's not like he was all bad. In the middle, he had some good playoff performances. What I'm saying is it hasn't been consistently every year he's scoring 28 points per game. He had some where he scored 22 points on 48% shooting. He had some where he scored 15 points per game on 40% shooting. That's what I'm saying.
No, Sam, I understand that. But again, for me, right, I'd rather trade Randle now than keep hoping for him to show up. Get some pieces, get some wing pieces, which we desperately need. We need some wing pieces and pieces to shoot. Get that. Get some guys that to me can slide into the third slot without the big ego. And I'm not saying Randle has this huge ego, but I'm talking about the ego as the sacrifice to being the third option on a team.
So who's the second slot?
I'm talking about.
No, you just said.
Oh man,
no,
you're gonna make me say it. You're gonna make me
no,
say
you
it.
said
Because I know
you
what you're gonna. Because I know you're gonna set me up. I know what you're gonna. You know what I'm gonna
all
say.
I did is ask you a question. You said where he can bring a wing in that can slide into the third slot. So I'm asking, who's the second slot?
Who would be the second slot right now if I add the wing?
If you're saying trade Randle, break it down to where you get some good wings, right?
Okay,
decent wings. So who is the second? And you said they can play the third slot. I'm asking you who's the second slot.
Well, it could be third. Okay.
I'm asking you who it is.
It could be. It could be RJ. It could be RJ.
All right. I was just asking you.
Because I know what you're trying to do. Well, here's the difference between
I'm just asking you. I'm just asking you.
Hold on. But I just want
to explain anything about RJ. I was just asking you. You don't have to explain about RJ.
Because I know you. Because I know you, Sim. Okay.
I'm not saying anything.
We're going to keep it about Randle because look, RJ showed me promise. He's 22 years old. He showed me that he can score in the playoffs. He can be a second option in the playoffs in the second round. He showed me that. I'm good. I'm good with RJ. Randle, I said this. I think I said this the day we got eliminated, or the day after. I don't want to be here again a year from now talking about keeping with Dump Randle. I don't. I've seen enough personally from Randle, and again, I just don't want to be in the same position next year when we're talking. Which again, he loses value. He loses more value if he lays another egg in the playoffs. And it's going to be harder to trade him. Why not trade him now? He has the 2 All-NBAs, 2 All-Stars. Listen, trade him. Again, I don't want the Knicks to mess up this opportunity when it comes to you legit got the guy. You got the second option to me, you got the second option on championship team with Jalen Brunson. Take advantage of that. Don't do what you did with Carmelo and never build a championship team around him. We got the flexibility, we got the picks, and we got the cap space. Make the moves.
Yeah,
make the moves.
You know, I agree
and we can
with
win
you.
And I think we can win a championship.
I agree with you.
This is one of the times I think we can really win a championship.
I agree with you
about. So we gotta get
Brunson.
a number 1 and a number 3 option and move Randle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you about Brunson. I don't know if he's your number 1 guy. I don't know where. We'll see how things go next year. But I agree with what I see and how I feel about him. He's definitely a big, huge piece, at least number 2 guy to a contending team. I don't think that means Randle isn't one of your supporting cast. I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't think
you know what it is? So here's my thing. I think, and I'm being honest, if I think he could be a Chris Bosh or Kevin Love and sacrifice, then yes, I would keep Randle on the team, Sim. I don't think he has that in him. That takes a lot.
I actually think he does.
And not to get too deep with it, huh?
I actually think he does.
And we literally.
I don't think because again,
we literally. First of all, in the playoffs, I think he dropped down to being the third as far as shot attempts. He only took 16 a game, right? And obviously the injury and all that kind of stuff, but he didn't seem to have an issue with being, I'm only going to take 16. I'm only taking 16 shots. RJ took more shots. Brunson took more shots. 16 shots a game in the playoffs. We've seen times throughout. People have gotten on the show and got mad because Randle didn't take enough shots that game. I really don't think he'll have an issue with it. I really don't. I think that
I don't know. Sim,
he didn't have a problem moving over for Jalen Brunson. There was no problem in the beginning of the season.
Hold on, but that's a difference. But there's a big difference. So there's a big difference from going to being 1A to 1B, then moving to 3.
But see, my thing is,
the
that's a
team
difference.
Always rises to the top, right? So if the guy coming in is clearly the number 1 option, guess what? Brunson got to slide down. Guess what? Randle got to slide down. Everybody has to move,
and it's going to happen.
But hold on. But Tony, that's not a problem for Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson. We already seen Jalen Brunson do that. Jalen Brunson was a third option behind KP and Luka. We've seen him
wait
do
a
that.
second. Wait a
We
second.
know
We
he
made the
can do
same
that.
argument about Julius Randle in
New Orleans.
New Orleans, LA.
The same exact argument. And now you're gonna
But Tony, no, Tony. There's different. No, Tony, there's
Why
a
is there a
difference.
difference?
Oh my God.
Steph pointed it out.
What?
Julius Randle wasn't Julius Randle.
And Jalen Brunson wasn't a star either. And now he is.
Okay.
But so you're saying Jalen Brunson is willing to give up his stardom and Julius Randle ain't?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, exactly.
Why?
I don't think he's going to do it.
Why?
Because he hasn't shown us. He wants him.
But see, that's why I disagree.
He did it for
Okay, hold on.
Did he not do it for Brunson?
Hold on, Sim. Hold on. Yes, Sim, but hold on. He went from he went from no. He went from being a 1A to 1B. There's a big, there's a difference. That's like saying Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Kawhi Leonard went from being a 1A to being a 1B. He's never been the third option.
Not according to Paul George, who clearly doesn't want to be the number one option.
That's true. I mean, you literally seen Julius Randle throw the ball to Brunson and move out the way. Time and time again in the playoffs, in the regular season, down the stretch, all the time.
I'm not arguing, Sim. I'm not arguing that. I told you, I'm not arguing that. I'm talking about what Kevin Love and Chris Bosh did. They did the nitty-gritty on the championship level team when they were the third option, and they took a lot. But hold on, son. Let me finish. They took a lot of stuff from the media, from fans, from anytime somebody messed up, it was the third option. It wasn't D Wade or LeBron. It was Chris Bosh. It wasn't Kyrie Irving or LeBron. It was Kevin Love. I'm just saying. I don't know if Randle can do the dirt that they did.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think he's mentally tough to do what they did.
But see, that's where
he's
been
taking
training.
all the blame as the number one option for the past 3 years.
He's been taking all the blame.
So how can you say he can't take the whatever criticism comes his way with a lesser role? That makes no sense. This man done bounced back from booing the New York City fans where 80% of the fan base thought there was no coming back from.
I think if the guys ahead of him are head and tails better, because somebody in the chat made the distinction, like Bosh had Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. What are you gonna say?
Right.
There was somebody else. Kevin Love had LeBron and Kyrie. Like, what are you gonna say? I think it's the same thing with Randle. Depending on who you bring in, what is Randle gonna say?
That's how I feel.
The only thing is, will he be sulking and what have you? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But hold on, Steph, hold on. We gotta talk about that too. That's not a little issue, Steph. That's not a little issue either. That's nothing that we can brush away. That's another thing too with him. The mental. It's been a couple seasons now that we got to talk about it every season now. Is he going to be mentally there? Is he going to check out again? Like I said, third option's got to do the nitty gritty. You got to play defense. You got to play hard. You can't just do those weak ass closeouts that he was doing in the playoffs. Which again, I'll say part of it was the ankle. You can't do the weak out close. You can't do those weak closeouts. You can't do what he was doing. You can't leave the no-name guy power forward and he scores 30 points and you don't close it on threes, which we've seen him do before when he was healthy. I'm just saying, I don't know if Randle can do all that. I don't know.
I think with less usage, I'm hoping he'll have more energy to play defense. And I don't even think Randle want that smoke anyway. I think some people internally are relieved that you've brought in other, other guys.
I do. I think, you heard him even at the, when he did his last press conference. He said, we got to figure out what we can do to help Jay. That's what they call it, Jalen Brunson. What can I do to help Jalen? You know what I mean?
Shoot better.
And I mean,
I'm just like,
no, what I'm saying is though, we're talking about him deferring to someone else.
Right.
That is the voice of deference to me. What can I do to help him? You know what I'm saying? And, people complain about his defense. You're going to, cool, I get it. He's not going to be the best defender in the world. He was the 4th best defensive player on this particular basketball team.
Oh, Sim, but Sim, so,
Just saying.
Okay, this is one play that we all, so I'm going to say this is one play that we all seen and we all going to talk about it. Is the play when he lost the ball, he puts his hands up, doesn't get back. Mind you, he could have got back and stopped the play. He doesn't get back and they score a layup.
No, I'm not saying he didn't do that. I'm not saying he didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he didn't do it. Clearly he did, right? But that has not been that same exact play all season long. People are going to say it was. I guarantee you he had just as many chase down blocks.
Thank you. I was waiting.
But nobody talks about those. No one cares about that.
See, Sim. I'm always fair about Randle.
No, you're not.
I think I'm pretty. No, Sim. First of all, Sim, come on, Sim. I got the receipts. I hate when I do this with you, man. Me and you talked, and we both said in the beginning of the season, hey, we think Randle's going to have a great year. Randle's probably going to have a great year this year.
You didn't say that.
I said that.
You wanted him gone.
So again, Sim. But Sim, the reason why I want him gone because I don't think he's going to elevate this team to where we need to be. Sim, I really believe.
I'm just going to say.
No, but hold on. Let me say this. I really believe that we.
And then I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to get someone else on the line because,
okay.
Some other people. Go ahead. Some other people want to call in. Go ahead.
Sim, I wholeheartedly believe these next 4 years, the Knicks are going to the finals. If we do the right moves. I really believe that we can do it. We were a few plays away from being in the Game 7 with Miami, and I like our chances in the Garden. I really do against that team.
Mm-hmm.
We got to make the right moves, and we can all agree that we have to make the right moves. But I'm telling you, Sim, if we make the right moves in these 4 years, and me personally, I think we get rid of Randle, get some wing players. Maybe a Cam Johnson. I don't know if the Knicks are going to trade with us. Maybe a Cam Johnson. Maybe one of those guys. Maybe a good wing player. I know they're not going to trade Mikal Bridges. I know that's not going to happen. But you get a good wing player. We're going to the Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals in the next 4 years.
Isaiah, what
believe.
happens if we add a good wing player?
If we add a good wing player, then and I will say this, Tony. I will say this: if we can add a good wing player, and Randle changes his mentality to be a third option, maybe he can stay on the team. If he can sacrifice and do those stuff that we needed to get done to be on that level.
I mean, I just say this.
I just don't think he could do it. Me personally, I don't think he could do it.
Okay. All right. I respect that. I just say this. Over the past 4 seasons, he's been counted out umpteen times. And I don't know how many times people have said the Knicks aren't going to get any better. And they continuously get better. So like I say, they keep getting better. Even though, he's there. He's on the team. He's obviously producing. He didn't produce in the playoffs. Hopefully it's a learning curve for him. 16 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 37% shooting, right? Hopefully this is he looks at it and says, I got to figure this out the same way he figured out how to become a player who literally was coming off the bench, riding the bench to an all-NBA guy. You know what I'm saying? He's been able to figure those things out. Hopefully he can figure out the playoffs, but no one can deny the facts. The Knicks were winning 17 games before he and Tom Thibodeau got here, along with R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson. He's been a part of this resurgence of the Knicks, and he's been, for the most part, a positive part of it, in my opinion. People are going to come with their issues, same way Jimmy Butler comes with his. But, you're talking about the Knicks getting better. He's been a part of this rise of the Knicks becoming who they are right now. If he wasn't on this team, I mean, obviously, if you had like Giannis or someone else like that, the Knicks would be doing whatever. But if you just took him off of this team right now and it was Obi there, the Knicks probably don't make the playoffs. They're not, to me, in my opinion, they're not this team that we see right now. He's part of the fabric of this team.
So you kind of got me. You kind of got me because I'm not the biggest Obi fan either. So you kind of got me. But look, Sim, we want to win again. Sim, I'm just gonna say it again. I just don't want to be here next year talking about keeping my double with Julius Randle. I don't want to do it because then I'm gonna have to bring up this video, and then you're gonna be like, "Oh, we didn't say that." I know you do, man. I
mean, we'll be doing.
Or maybe you flip flop, and then you want to keep him, and then you be like, "Oh, I never said I wanted to dump him."
Yeah, he might get a mid range and average 28 points a game. And,
hold on, Let me. I don't see now, Sim. I'm gonna be honest. I don't care about the regular season that much. Listen, I'm gonna say this, Tony, right here on the show live. If Julius Randle shows up in the playoffs next year, if he shows up, I will publicly apologize to both of you.
I don't need you
publicly
to apologize
to both of you. Hey, hold on. I'm gonna buy some a bucket hat, and I'm gonna buy Tony. I know what I'm gonna buy you, Tony. I know what I'm gonna buy you, Tony. I can't say it on the show. I know what I'm gonna buy you, Tony.
Nah, just make me a bookcase.
Yeah, there you go. hey, Isaiah, let me try to get to some other callers, man. If they're calling in, all right.
I appreciate
man. You. All right, peace.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, right now, 54% of the chat, and there's been 205 votes. All right, so that's a good number, 206, good number of votes. 54% of the chat says to keep Julius Randle. I'm in agreement. Unless you can get somebody, unless you're bringing someone in, and I'm not opposed to bringing someone in that, if you think they fit chemistry-wise, I'm not opposed to that. But personally, I feel like I want someone that, when I bring them in, I don't want to hope that they're going to fit chemistry-wise because you don't know till you get them there. I want to know that this guy is coming in to ball out. You know what I'm saying? If I'm moving Julius Randle. Caller, you're live, man. Tell me your name and where you're from, please.
Oh, Sam, it's Spree. What's up?
What's up, Spree? How you feeling, man?
I'm all right, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
It's still very painful. I haven't really gotten over it. I know I should, but I probably will get over it in like a month. But I'm still, once the finals are over, I'll probably get over it. But I'm rooting against Miami. Like Bubba said, we were 12 minutes away from having a Game 7 against the team that's in the NBA Finals. So, we were a lot closer than people think. We just got off to a poor start against a Miami team that's like us, that has a lot of heart, and they jumped on us in a series. And when you do that, you have to really be perfect, because in Miami, they're going to do the same little things that we did in the regular season. But let's talk about Randle. So here's my thing. Remember coming into last season, Johnny, he went to Johnny Bryant, and Johnny Bryant was honest with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think I'm in total agreement with Steph's analysis of this situation. I think, number one, teams make adjustments in the regular season, but in playoff series, they're making adjustments from game to game. You're playing against the same team, and the way Randle plays, I would like to see him be the third guy. You have two options here. Make him the third guy and get a better, really good wing player who can do it all, who can shoot it, who's going to need to guard, because Jalen Brunson's not the greatest defender. I love Jalen Brunson, but he's not. You need a wing player that can take guys off the dribble consistently and score and finish, not just Quentin Grimes. And I like Quentin Grimes, but Quentin Grimes occasionally will put the ball on the floor, but he's a little inconsistent. So you can do it that way and bank on the fact that Julius Randle, who I agree with something you did say, Sim. You said something that is correct. For all of the things, the weaknesses of Randle, one thing you have to give him credit for is he's been counted out a lot of times in New York. And he's come back strong. He just hasn't put it together in the postseason. I don't know how big the injury thing is. I can't answer that. He had surgery on it, so he had surgery on it. I just go with what I saw.
Yeah, well, the surgery is, it's an arthroscopic surgery, right? And I was reading about it. I'm not a doctor. I was reading about it. And basically, they go inside and put cameras, put a camera in there so they can see if there's any damage, and then they repair the damage. Right now, they may look in there and see that there's no damage, but the arthroscopic surgery is, let me look in here and see what's going on. Right, so we don't know if he had damage and had to repair the damage or what.
Yeah, but you can't mitigate it either, because if there's nothing to look for, you know what I mean? Like if you feel fine and everything's great, it's still invasive. You know what I mean?
It's still invasive. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not gonna be like, oh, let me just double check, unless you have a reason to double check.
Nah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
I mean, I just
I
I
heard fans go as far as say he did that so he had it out, like because it's such a minor procedure.
Yeah,
and I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous too, because Julius Randle is a in shape freak type of guy. You know what I'm saying? Just taking care of his body. I doubt that he's gonna want to get surgery and have 3 to 4 weeks or even more where he can't get in the gym. You know what I mean? So I don't think he would do that on purpose. Nobody, because there's risks involved. Even any surgery, anytime you're going in your body with tools, there's risk involved. You know what I'm saying? So no one's gonna do that on purpose. That's just dumb.
I agree. I mean, like my whole thing is this. Look, playoffs, adjustments game to game. It just changes the IQ, the way you play. Some of it is the offense. Like, we've gotten better every year personnel-wise. Like, our roster a couple years ago when Randle didn't play well in the playoffs was an inferior roster to this one, correct? We all in agreement on that?
Say that again?
The roster that we had when we played the Hawks, our team this year had better talent, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt.
Okay.
Better talent.
So this year's team had more talent, but I still think we can improve it. I think the wing spot, and RJ took a step, but I'm talking about a guy who can play both ends of the court defensively and also not just shoot the ball. We need more shooting, like just plain and simple. You need more shooters, but I want guys that can just put the ball on the floor and finish, not just guys that put it on the floor and hit that little pass to Mitch. I like Grimes. He's going to get better, but I think we need a legitimate, hopefully all-star wing player, and to insert Randle. You have to bank on Randle being the 3. Otherwise, you trade him. If you don't believe, I just think you have to bank on that. If you think Johnny Bryant's conversations with him can get him to just say, okay, let's look at what happened in the playoffs. You had the injuries. I do believe, Sim, one thing you said is you think if we get better players, Randle will play along. There's like you were having a discussion with Bubba about how he switched from being the 1 to the 2. Why can't he be switched to the 3? I think he can, but I also think like Carmelo was the same way. Like, not Carmelo. Carmelo was always the 1, but we always had the same question. When Carmelo had better people around him, he fit in fine. Like, he was able to make the right plays. I just think every basketball player, Sim, has their own strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. Randle has certain strengths, but in the playoffs, I think a lot of his weaknesses come out. Like, how do we sharpen that?
Right.
Like he's gotten better. He's not look, he from where he started, I look at it as it's any job. You start from the beginning. He has talent. He can put the ball in the basket, but he did it inefficiently. In game 2, Sim, against the Heat, he sprayed the ball, and he was making with the game without Jimmy Butler. He did it. He did all the right things in that game at home in the Garden. It was one game. So he just doesn't do it consistently.
Yeah, let me say one thing there. In game 2, right, that may have been, what did Randle have in game 2?
Can you pull that up for me? That's very important.
18. To me, that was his best game. And for me, to me, it felt like the adrenaline. It felt like, because that was his, his return, his first game back. To me, he kind of played worse as the series went on. But again, I visually saw the injury. Like, I thought that was the reason. So I thought he was playing off adrenaline in that first game. And it wasn't a great offensive performance. It was a great read of the game.
Right.
Exactly.
Now,
but he also did it before he got hurt in the Cavs series. He did it for a half. Like, Sim, I forget it was the last game of the series when Randle played in that game before he got hurt, and we won the game. We ended up winning the series. That first half before he got hurt, he read the game beautifully.
Yeah.
I don't know what he had in that first half.
In that game, that second game versus Miami.
Yeah.
If you paid attention, because I was thinking about this actually during the game.
Mm-hmm.
In the first half of that game, Julius Randle had in that game, he ended up with 25. He had 25. And Isaiah, if you're still listening, you wanted a game where Randle put up his numbers, right? Game 2 versus Miami, 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists. That was a Randle game. The Knicks won that game 111-105. So you're asking for a Randle game. There you go. You had a Randle game. If that makes you happy, Big Bubba. But if you watch that game, especially in the first half, Randle was making mid-range shots. I thought about it during the game, and I really just feel that Randle's got to get such a strong mid-range game. He's got to work on such a strong mid-range game that when teams are playing the type of zone that Miami plays, or they do zone man-to-man, but when they're playing the man-to-man, they still got guys pinching in, that he can just lay back on that mid-range, bang, bang. That's just smooth. You know what I'm saying? I think he really needs to perfect that. And it will change, in my opinion, his performance in the playoffs. Because that game right there, Randle was killing it in the first half in the mid-range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You gotta be able to go to other things. Like, you gotta be a consistent, and again, if some of this is also more talent, I think we have to upgrade certain positions on the team. If you're bringing Julius Randle back, you're banking on him he's gotten better in certain situations. He had an all-NBA year. He hasn't figured out the playoffs. You watch the entire playoffs. You get your injury right. You get your mind right. And you come back and learn. Also, the offense has to improve, just like the offensive philosophy. But like you're saying, Sam, Randle has to grow still in certain areas. Randle has to learn how to go to the mid-range when it's not working, when you're not making the three or you're not bullying. Get to the free throw line. But he does it in stretches. It's not consistent. It's not a 48-minute Jokic. It's not even Jimmy. Jimmy will read the game beautifully for many games. Yes, everybody has an off night. Randle he doesn't do it all the time. So that's why if you can make him that third option where you don't always have to rely on him and you don't burn him out for the whole regular season, then you could bring him back. Look, I think the easy thing to do is to do it that way. There's a harder way to do it where you could make a case you trade for Randle, but I don't know what's available. I don't know what type of player is available to the Knicks.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Spree, because Tom Thibodeau said it just before, when they did the closeout, the closeout interview or whatever. And I do want to say, Big Bubba, you said, wow, one Randle game. Literally, when we were just talking, Big Bubba.
That's what you asked for.
You said, can I get one? Can I get one? That's what you asked for. Can I get one game where he gives me his season's averages? That's exactly what you said. Those were your words, cooking with Chef Zay, or building bookshelves with Chef Zay. That's what you asked me for, and that's what I just gave you. Now, Spree. Now, see, Big Bubba made me forget what I was going to ask. See that? He made me forget. But
it's okay.
But just are you keeping Randle? That's what I'm asking you. Are you keeping him? And I know what I was going to ask. Are you keeping him?
Oh, jeez. Oh man, I'm such an emotional fan. There's many reasons why I should say no, don't keep him, because it's very painful because I was so close and I'm such a selfish fan that I want to win a championship and I feel like we could be in the finals, but you can't skip steps. Julius Randle, he has flaws. There's no doubt. Leon Rose, get another star player and make him the third guy and keep Julius.
Okay.
I can't believe, Julius, if you are listening to this, you owe me big time that I'm willing to do this. But that's what I think you have to do.
And then before I let you go, I'm going to ask you real quick. Do you believe in Tom Thibodeau said Julius Randle is just at the beginning of his, the peak of his powers? He's just at the beginning of his prime years. How you feel about it?
I think he's learned a lot. I think he's still athletically. I think he's in good shape. I mean, the injury thing is a setback, but is he
still
just
in his
prime? I mean,
right. I mean,
Sam,
but do you take?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the reason why I asked this question is this: 2-time All-NBA, 2-time All-Star. Do you believe he's just entering his prime and he's going to get better? Because not many guys make All-NBA teams. Let's put it like that. That's the truth. That's the God's honest truth.
Mm-hmm.
Only 15 guys a season. In most seasons, you got the same guys from the previous season, or a lot of the same guys from the previous season, right? Do you look at that and say,
he's going to get better?
Okay.
Yeah. I think. Well, here's the thing. I think he only gets better. When I say better, like you're not talking about the regular. I'm only talking about the postseason. I know what Randle can do.
I mean, regular season and postseason because you need them to get to the postseason, right? Especially when you have a team that doesn't have much room for error. You need them to get to the postseason.
Randle is a talented. Look, Randle, you know what he is. He's a 20, 10, and 5 guy in the regular season. It hasn't translated consistently to the postseason. He's not going to be labeled a winner until he does that. What I'm saying to you is I think a lot of the playoff thing is some of it is learning, like him individually, like taking it and literally learning and going and doing and like, but some of it also is the offense and some of it is also personnel, like where he doesn't have to be asked to do that much and he can just play within the flow and make the right reads, but he doesn't always have to make the reads. He can just focus on boarding and transition because his body. The one thing about Julius Randle is, if you haven't watched him in person, his body, not many people can handle that when he's engaged. I don't know, Sim. It's just we can. You know how many teams in the NBA have arguments about hard? Like every team has this. Every team has failures. It's just we're in New York. We're all upset. I'm just saying, man. Like it's just. Randle's proven us wrong before. People thought he would never come back from the thing. I'm a good fan. I'm going to be a loyal guy, even though I want, like after the game, Sam, I said trade him because I was very sad. And I still am very sad. It's going to take me a month, but I'll get back on board with Randle in a month because I have no choice. But you have a good one.
I appreciate you, Spree. Thank you.
All right, man.
Tony. How you feel about that? With Tom Thibodeau saying, "Hey, this guy, he's still young. He's just entering his prime."
I agree 100%. And then if you just look at the league historically, you know what I mean? It's a fact. I think as years went on, when I was younger, I think guys peaked maybe closer to 30 or 30, you know what I mean, to 33. I think now it's right around 27, you know what I mean? So I think he's entering his prime right now, and I think there's a 3-year window where he could still get better. He can still improve. And then to take it a step further, for the most part, historically, guys get better mentally as they get older. So true. You know what I mean? So that's the real catch. You know what I mean? Like we had this conversation. I think it was off air, but the prime, would you say when your potential and your IQ meet, right?
When your athleticism and like, those, your strength, your speed, your athleticism and your knowledge of the game and IQ meet, right? And that's usually when you're at the peak of your prime. And then your athleticism and all that starts to go down, but your IQ continues to go up, which allows you to stay at a very, very high level
for a couple more years.
Look at LeBron, right?
Exactly.
Athleticism going down, but his IQ is up here.
Through the roof.
You know, and as you get older, your IQ becomes better, which is part of the reason why Jimmy Butler is excelling right now. He's 33 years old. The last 2 seasons, he's averaged 28 points per game on 50% shooting. He's, you know, and you know,
His
he's
best
able
playoff
to,
years.
yeah, best playoff years because that basketball IQ. But go ahead, Tom.
No, that was pretty much it. So I think, I mean, most of the people's arguments or you know, disdain for Randle is probably leaning towards more the IQ side than like the talent side, right?
Oh, of course.
But nobody really thinks about that improves in time. You know what I mean? That improves with experience. That improves with going through situations and learning from them. So you know what I mean? Like I think he's gonna only get better, and I think as we've seen in his time in New York, he's only gotten better. You know what I mean? So
I agree with you.
Why would I think different?
I agree with you. Let me get to another caller here. Caller, you're live. Tell me your name and where you're from, please.
Hey, Gerard from Queens, living in the DMV.
Gerard, what's going on,
calling
man?
to talk a little bit. Yep. Yeah, so just the Randle thing. Realistically, it's not really a dump, right? Like, we're not going to dump him. I think that what we want to do is we want to move him. And the reason why we want to move him is because of all the different perspectives that everyone has brought on. And at the bottom line, RJ and Randle do not fit. Randle, RJ, and Brunson do not fit. One of them have to go. And I think that what most of the chat and most of Knicks fans really see is that like I think Bubba said it best, is like, do we want to be here next year asking the same question about Julius Randle? And I think to some level, he needs to go. Like, we need to bring in pieces that actually fit better. There are arguments to trade RJ. I know that's not the show for that, but the point is that RJ provides a lot of value, has demonstrated growth, and he's only 22 versus 28, 29, and somewhat of a ceiling. I think that's really the main argument around Randle. As far as a player, as far as everything that he's contributed, I mean, I think he's been amazing. I think people overlook the fact that what he did last year to get past the year that he had last year. I mean, I've never seen, I thought it was the most amazing thing, his comeback this year. He has a lot, he's a promising player, but I just don't feel that he fits what the Knicks do. And my last point.
I'd just like to ask you about that, because people keep saying that he doesn't fit what the Knicks do, but he's actually been
the catalyst of what the Knicks do, right? Because
maybe
I mean,
agreed.
They base a large portion of. I could see if before Julius Randle came, the Knicks had a certain style of play, and then he came in, and you're like, nah, he don't fit with what they do. But that's not the case.
Maybe I need to explain that a little bit better. It's not that you have 3 players on the Knicks: Brunson, RJ, and Randle, that all play bully ball. There's the issue with the shooting. I think Grimes should shoot a little bit more, but a large part of that is that those 3 players have probably the highest usage rates. And in the playoffs, it's really tough, particularly like when you have I think someone said it earlier about game-to-game adjustments. Having those 3 type of players packing the paint and having no other outlets to make shots is a problem. So where we say that Randle doesn't fit, and maybe that's not really, I think I should retract that to a bit, but I don't think that it's also that having 3 power bully ball type players on the roster is a lot of redundancy that can be easily exploited in the playoffs.
Okay, so what's your determination to say, if you're saying having these 3 guys that play the same style is not, we don't think it's going to work, then what is it that makes you say Randle's the one that has to go?
I think because of all the above. I think that the team does need, I'm looking at more from a growth perspective and a team perspective and taking the next step forward. My thing is that Randle, due to the attitude, due to the, just the nature, like someone calls it the mercurial nature of Randle, he just, you know what I mean? I think that it's almost like, you ever been in a spot where you've worked really hard to get to a certain point, you fall, you fail, and it's just not happening here? And that's kind of what I see with Randle. I think it's like he'd be better suited on a team like a Phoenix with a KD and a Booker, where he can literally just do his thing, but at the same time he would defer automatically, simply because it's KD and Devin Booker. He seems that player. Same thing when he was in you said something earlier that was a little bit wrong. When he came here, the second year was the first year of Thibodeau. And that's when that was the first year that was the contract year where he was actually applying for new contract. I think that there's some components to that. You know, Tom Thibodeau clearly breathed life to him, and this was going to be my last point. Was essentially Thibodeau seems like the coach. When you look at the coach, he needs players that are team first players. I'm not saying that Randle is not, but we're talking about like players like Brunson, players like RJ Grimes, guys Josh Hart, players that actually will defer to the coach and understand the hierarchy. Randle doesn't do that. And then he's demonstrating he has to do that.
You
and
don't
like
think
you
so?
said, now you start
So
bringing.
you don't think that he deferred
I don't think
to
he does that.
Brunson? You don't think he deferred to Brunson?
I think I don't think he just defers to the coach, to the will of the team. I do not. I've seen it.
So
I mean, outside
what makes you say that?
Components,
What makes you say that he doesn't defer to the will of the team?
I because I've seen it. Meaning like the will of the team spirit, the will of essentially think about like when IQ's trying to calm him down. You know, the way he just got in his face, he like pushed him away. The bonehead plays that he constantly does, the turnovers, the sulking. I mean, we can go on with him, and I don't want to disparage the man in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that on the court, when his mood and his energy is what it is, because things are not going his way, it takes a toll on the team, and it's very hard. And you can see it; it's visual, it's visible that that's the case. And I don't think that that's helpful.
I do agree that he has an attitude problem. You know what I'm saying? And not that he's not a good guy, because I think he definitely is a good guy. You know, but or should I say, the emotional? You know. Emotional.
He's emotional, man.
Emotional guy. I'm not gonna point and Tony. Tony, I wish I would have did this video. I didn't do the video, right? I'm not gonna point to the whole IQ thing, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna challenge everyone to go back and look at that video if you want to point to that. Go back and look at the video. Julius Randle was walking, and IQ, before Julius Randle got in his face, IQ bucked and said something to Julius Randle. You've got to slow it down and look at it. He bucked and he said something to him, and then that's when Julius Randle got in his face. Go look at it, slow it down and look at it. You'll see it. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough.
About that.
I believe you.
Yeah,
I think that it's not. But how many times are we going to see the meltdowns? How many times we're going to see the turnaround jumper spin move? How many times we're going to see the stupid turnovers? How many going to see? I mean, that's not what you're getting from your leaders on your team. And I think that I'm not saying he's not a leader. And when people talk about his IQ, he has the ability. I mean, I've seen it in games. He makes spectacular passes, but then he reverts. And that level of consistency in demeanor and effort is not what you expect from, one of your older vets on your team.
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing about Randle's in a people always compare him to other guys who are 28 or whatever, and who's been the leader of a team and all of that. And his route's been a little bit different. I think he's still learning how to be the kind of leader that you're saying, and maybe he never gets there. Maybe he's not that guy. It's part of the reason that I think he's a great second or third option. I believe, I do believe that, I don't think it should be on the Phoenix Suns. What's the difference?
And the difference would be that he'd be on a team with two players that command the ball.
Well, why don't
you have no other choice?
But what we're saying is you want to get those guys here anyway. So if he would be great in Phoenix, you don't want to get guys here like Devin Booker or KD? You don't want to get – I mean, I'm not saying you want KD.
I think we're good, man. I think
Really?
I think that the Knicks, honestly.
So you think
so we're good
are,
and we're good getting rid of Randle.
So you think getting rid of Randle that we have guys that are going to turn into that on this team? I don't.
No, I'm saying that we need to. I think no one's saying just to get rid of Randle, just to get rid of Randle. We're getting Randle and bringing in a player like a KP, bringing in a player like a Jeremy Grant, bringing in a more polished, a more versatile, a more team, a player that would fit on this current roster better. I think that's really what it is. I mean, you start looking at, I think that that's the route. I don't think that this team, quite honestly, I think this team is good. This team is really good.
See, I don't think.
And I think that,
Go ahead.
So shouldn't it be adding talent
great.
with Randle as opposed to trying to figure out how to get him out and get someone? I mean, those guys you named, I don't think they're clear cut better than him. So you're saying a lateral move at best. You know what I mean? And as opposed to
lateral
adding
move at best.
Yeah.
KP and Grant are lateral moves at best, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think you could argue that.
I don't.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Tony.
Now go ahead.
No, I say Grant and KP, in my opinion, are lateral moves at best. Like, that's me being generous. I think there's an argument that they're not lateral moves and they make us worse.
I mean, that's why they play the games, right? But but nonetheless, I think that just looking at their games, like for instance, you bring a KP, you now can actually add a pick and roll, which is something that would tremendously be lethal with a Jalen Brunson. You know what I mean? You bring in Jeremy Grant, good pop, a good shooter, good defender. You know what I mean? You bring in those type of players that are more team oriented. I understand definitely the KP thing with the injuries, but the reality, he's a different player and you'd be playing a different role. And I also think back to my earlier point with respects to being a team player. I think those are the type of players that if Tibbs was like, hey, you need to sit, okay, he wants to move the rotation, he'd be able to move the rotation. I think that's something that people don't really look at Miami. They do have 6 undrafted free agents, but that also gives a lot of power to the coach to be able to be like, yo, you need to sit down. And we just saw that the other day, like Kevin Love's playing, and guess what? They win the game. And I'm not saying that I don't want to make that like that's the pure correlation. But there is something to be said about a coach being able to coach, just coach, rather than to have to manage all the personalities, so to speak, or manage the egos and the perspective of his players. There's some you got a guy like Jalen Brunson who has no ego, zero, who's all about team, that we've seen after great performance of great, we've done nothing. So he has the right mindset.
Right. I mean, because I think all coaches have to manage egos, and in my opinion, you don't win if you don't have guys that got some of what Randle has. I'm sorry, you need guys that have some of that fire. You need guys that are sometimes going to get mad and challenge you. And some of those guys are tough to coach. Why you think Miami is there? Jimmy Butler ain't easy to coach. Jimmy Butler was going to fight Spo last year. Udonis Haslem had to step up. They was about to fight on the bench.
I remember that game.
I mean, you need some of that.
You saying that if you remove Randle, you don't have that on this team currently?
That you don't
have those attitudes, you don't have those sparks?
I don't think you have on this team. I do. In my opinion, you move Randle, I don't think you got the fire. Randle brings, and that was something that was missing in the playoffs. I was asking for Randle to argue with the refs and get mad because he brings that fire that I think is part of the fabric of this basketball team.
No, I mean, as I said, man, that's one of the reasons why I like the NBK Enterprises, because there's so many different perspectives that you need to think, and that's definitely one of them. So, I appreciate you guys.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Looking forward to hearing from you again.
No doubt. Good, brother. Take care.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
2 things that I wanted to ask Sim. Hopefully he's still listening. One was in reference to the what Isaiah said, but oh man, I lost my whole train of thought. We'll get back to it. I was trying to hold this for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Steph, I think you muted yourself, Steph.
Sorry about that. I think in wanting for myself in wanting Randle to move down in the pecking order, in no way am I think we're underestimating the talent he like this guy is a talented guy.
He is.
And talent is hard to come by in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So you when I talk about getting somebody just as good um and maybe maybe he's a better fit, you got to be careful. Like it has to be the right guy,
Right.
because you could take a step back. You could take a step back if you trade Julius Randle for the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Like, I think we focus too much on how the game looks. We focus too much on, I want to see, more ball movement at times, but we just got to be careful with Randle. So, yeah, I don't think he's that go-to guy, but you get somebody like Randle in that third position and he getting you 20 points, 8 rebounds, getting basically the same numbers, because he's been definitely much more efficient this year in a different role. Come on, who has that in the NBA?
Right.
Who has that
Exactly.
on a decent contract? Come on,
right? That's tough.
So when people talk about wanting to move him over RJ, and I'm sure we'll talk about this. This is what I ask myself: am I betting what's going to happen first? What do I have more faith in? Randle showing up in the playoffs, or RJ developing a consistent jump shot, which he needs at that position? That's the question. That's the question for me. And then if he moves down to that third spot, you definitely want him to show up. Don't get me wrong, but you ain't even relying on him that much. So let's be careful with the move Randle vibes. I get it. I do feel he's miscast, but to move him,
right. It's got to be the right. It's got to be the right guy.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right guy. And that guy,
right.
Preferably for me, it's a star. But if it's a guy that fits, like you said, it fits in there, and does certain things, and you got to know, in my opinion, surefire, like this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And Queen, to your point, one of those two things happening, I think, changes everything for us. You know what I mean? Randle being able to produce at regular season level in the playoffs or better changes things. RJ actually developing a solid jump shot might even push Randle to the third
Might push him to that
without making
option.
any moves.
It might.
Right.
It might. You know what I mean?
It might.
Oh,
It might.
I had to say that real quick, but then I typed in what I was going to say before, so I didn't forget again. I think your condition is rubbing up for me, Queen. I don't know. Oh, so what I put? Isaiah said he don't want to be in this position next year with Randle. Unfortunately, whether Randle is here or not, we're going to be in this position
With
no matter
somebody.
what. We've seen it time and time again. Somebody has to be public enemy number one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So if it's not Randle, maybe it's RJ, maybe it's the guy who we trade Randle for.
Maybe
you know
it's
what I mean?
Brunson. Don't let Brunson fall off.
One day
You know what I mean?
it'll be Brunson. Listen, I already know what the arguments is going to be for Brunson. I already know.
Can't defend.
He
Like,
doesn't defend.
all that stuff.
He over dribbles all the time. He's playing ISO basketball. We can't
He's
win with a
selfish.
short guard. I already know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I already know.
And then to the last caller's point, he talked about the lack of like connection between him and Randle, Tibbs and Randle. To me, I think one thing that a lot of us maybe tend to forget, or correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it like under the impression that bringing Tibbs in, he wasn't the biggest fan of Randle. Randle had to earn his spot in Tibbs, you know what I mean, circle as well. You know what I mean? Like, I think Tibbs came in with the impression that they were going to be looking to like move on from him. You know what I mean? So I think that in itself tells you, one, Julius surprised Tibbs. You know what I mean? So his outside perception of who Randle was, and then who he realized he has as a coach became two different things. You know what I mean? So that I think that alone justifies or disproves that there's some type of Randle's not a Tibbs guy or this. You know what I mean? I think he earned his way into Tibbs' circle, and as we've said time and time, it's hard to get out of there.
But I think Tibbs is just accepted. I think he would like him to play a little better defense, but I think he's just kind of accepted that this is certain things
right. This is who he is,
and maybe a lesser role he can concentrate on the defense a little bit more. I mean, like we see with Aaron Gordon right now, who's never been a defender, right? He's never been known for defense, and he's kind of had to readjust in the role that he's in Denver, and now all of a sudden, I got him guarding, some of the elite players throughout the league. I mean, granted, part of that has to do with their best players aren't great defenders either. So somebody got to guard them. But yeah, I mean, you got to figure out other ways to use them.
Yeah, no doubt. De La Music, thank you for the super chat. He said salute to the panel. These were a while ago. Then he said chemistry is king. Again, De La Music, thank you for the super chat. Chemistry is king. There is none with Randle on the team. How many times does he have to show us who he is, move him? And that's why I kind of disagree. I think, we have a perception of what we think chemistry is supposed to be. But when you're actually on a team, you're like, okay, we know we got to, this is our guy. Like how many of you have a group of friends and this person does this person does that, this person does that, but you accept it in your group, right? You know what I'm saying? And there may be people that, spat about this, spat about that. I think the team has accepted like, okay, we know Randle, might go off. What are we going to do to help prevent it or something like that? You know what I mean? But I think that they also know that he supports them and has their back and, maybe his approach isn't always right, but, he's going to, he's going to be there with you. You know what I'm saying? I think you can see it. I think you can see it like in the press conferences. You know what I'm saying? Them guys, joking with each other. I mean, I think when he won All NBA, right? And it was in the Cleveland series when they announced it or something like that. And he's sitting there, and they asked him. He was sitting there with RJ, and they asked him, how much, do you get a bonus or something like that? And RJ's laughing like, yeah, I want to know too. How much, they just joking and playing around. You know what I'm saying? I think you see it in those aspects when you start talking about, do they have chemistry or not? You know what I mean? I think they do have some chemistry, and they're growing, they're building. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of the reason why they made it to the second round, because they have some chemistry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand how people are defining chemistry. Are you talking about ball movement? Is that chemistry? Are you talking about being chummy on the butt? Like, what is chemistry?
Yeah,
I mean, for the Knicks to get to the second round, that's chemistry,
right?
And if it's not, if they did that despite chemistry, give them a round of applause for that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, if there's no chemistry and they did what they did, that's a feat in itself.
Right. I think the team definitely has chemistry. But anyway, Julius Randle, 55% say keep him. I think everyone here says keep him. And then we'll see. I think the front office is going to keep him, but we'll see what happens. He's got some work to do to get better to come back. The only other thing I want to say really quick before, we can do, spend a little bit of time on Obi. Don't have to be too much time. Are you afraid that his ankle injury is going to prevent him from coming back in top shape next season?
That is a possibility. And the thing about him, when he's not in top shape, he's not one of them guys that work their way into shape during the season. Like they come in, they not in shape, but as the season goes on, it gets better. When he's come in not in shape, I haven't seen that. He gets better as time goes on.
Right.
So yeah, it's a concern.
Yeah, because it's a concern for me too. Tony,
I mean, we talking about Randle's injury?
his surgery.
Yeah, I'm not because I just feel like one, there's enough time. The time frame for his recovery. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a setback, obviously I'll start being concerned. But I think he has enough time to actually chill out, relax, recover, and then has the amp up time to get prepared for the season. Okay. So I'm less concerned. But if I hear anything about a setback or, you know what I mean, like things aren't looking where they should be at this point, then I would be concerned.
Yeah. Hopefully everything is okay. I get concerned because when he had that season where he spat with the fans and all of that, he was in good shape because he's always in good shape, but he wasn't in the type of shape he was in this season when he came in or the season before. So, we want him to come in the best shape possible. Really quick. Obi.
Mitchell still trying to get into the act.
Are we keeping Obi? I mean, if we're keeping Randle,
outlet pass, top and ahead of
what are we doing with Obi?
And the windmill.
He averaged 7.4 points in the regular season. 3 rebounds, 26, 44% from the field, 34% from 3, 89% from the free throw line. He shot. He played 15.7 minutes per game. In the regular season and in the playoffs, very similar numbers. 7 points a game, 1.5 rebounds, just under 1 assist, 43% from the field, 30% from 3, 80% from the free throw line, 15.9 minutes in the playoffs. He's struggling to get minutes behind Randle. This year he made $6.8 million. And then at the end of next season, he'll have a qualifying offer for $9.17.
Up ahead to Toppin. Throws again.
What are we doing?
I like it.
You go first, man.
Prepared to push it up.
Mitchell driving, lost the ball. Good defense.
That sounds kind of
Here's Barrett on the other end. Gives it to Toppin for the throwdown.
But I will say, I'm moving on from Obi. I just think that he's up for a contract extension. How much money are you paying him to play 15 minutes or 17 minutes
45 seconds to play.
Julius Randle.
Runaway win for the Knicks.
And that being said, I actually, you know how Josh Hart can play the 2 or the 3? That's what I feel we need behind Julius Randle. Somebody who's versatile and can play the 3 and the 4 in a little 14, 17 minutes. Like, I think we need more of a hustle guy than we need a 3-point shooter behind Randle, somebody who can defend, rebound, get deflections, things like that. So I would move on from Obi Toppin.
Okay, and I apologize. I had the video behind, the little highlights going over top of our voices, but we just went over what he did in the playoffs. I mean, in the regular season and in the playoffs, and you can see it up there on the screen. Steph said she would move on from Obi. Not really dump him, but move on from Obi. Tony, your thoughts?
I was in a similar lane as Steph originally. Like, I was gonna try to play the fence and say I'm okay either way, but I'm actually gonna go keep him for. I'm gonna say keep him. With the option to, move them, dump them down the line. So basically, I'm less concerned with the qualifying offer and what are we gonna pay him and these things. I feel like if the front office plays their cards correctly, they can take the risk of having him hit restricted free agency and kind of have the ball in your court. And then kind of want to maybe work out a sign and trade if the number's too high and things of that nature. But I say all that with I'm not opposed to a small move now either. You know what I mean? Like, even if it was Duarte from Indiana, we know Indiana's had interest in Toppin throughout the past 2 seasons or whatever. We could bring a young, like, defensive-minded shooter. You know what I mean? It's like Fournier with some defense, so it's somebody that we know we could utilize. but I don't think we get much more than that as far as the value for him moving him now. But obviously, if he's a restricted free agent and we're working with him with the other team, I think we could get more of a fair, you know what I mean? Because now you're dealing with a team who wants him, dealing with a team he wants to go to, and now you know what I mean. It's all about a fair negotiation. So I would hold on to him because I think he's still an asset, even if it's as a restricted free agent, even if it's on a final year with the qualifying, if it ends up being that route. You know what I mean? I think it's still valuable enough to be moved and flipped down a little.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, it's tough with Obi, man, because I don't see Obi Toppin getting playing time on this basketball team. I just don't see it happening. Right? He's as long as Randle's on his team, Obi's not gonna play. That's the way that I see it. As long as Randle's on the team, Obi's not playing. He's not gonna all of a sudden get 25 minutes a game. He's not gonna split time with Julius Randle or anything like that. I kind of feel like you're doing a disjustice to his career if you don't move him.
That's where I disagree. I don't think we're detrimenting his value, because I think with other teams, when they look at him, I think they feel like, I mean, maybe this is what you're saying. I feel like other teams feel like, oh, we could use him, but we're going to use him this way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So I'm not saying we're getting the full potential or the usage out of him, but I don't think it's hurting the way other teams see him throughout the league. You know what I mean? So I think if a team is high on him, they're high on him, and it's not based off of kind of like what they see what he's doing in New York. It's based off what they see he could do for them. You know what I mean?
That I agree with you, but it's still a disservice to him when he can be somewhere else, playing, playing full time, and securing a contract for the next, the next time.
Okay, disservice to him, but not necessarily a disservice to us, his value and things of that nature. All right, I agree, and the Knicks typically, this regime, they seem to take care of their guys. You know what I mean? Like,
true.
Even in departure, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So I could see them saying we're doing a disservice to you. Let's find something that mutually helps us.
Right. And I want to correct myself. Earlier, I said he made $6.8 million this season and a qualifying offer at the end of next season, which he does. He'll make 23-24 this season coming up. He'll make $6.8 million. And then there's a qualifying offer for 24-25 for $9.17 million. Right. So if the Knicks want to keep Obi, they'll extend the qualifying offer at the end of next season. Then Obi will either decline it or take it. Right. And if he declines it, he'll be a restricted free agent. If he accepts it, he'll play for another season under $9.17 million. Then he'll be an unrestricted free agent.
I guess basically what I'm saying is when you dump guys, you devalue them a little bit to the other teams.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, if you're dealing with a team that is pursuing him, now it's more of an equal playing field as far as negotiation.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Knicks should move on from Obi. Let him go somewhere and play. Hopefully he excels. You know what I mean? As long as he's behind Randle, you're never going to see the full potential of what he can be in the league, in my opinion, because I don't think he's going to be as good as Julius Randle, right? I think he's always going to be, a role player. He may average 17, 18 points a game, with 8 or 9 rebounds or something like that. But I don't see Obi as being the guy that's going to create his own shot and draw the defense. So I think there's a big difference between him and Randle in just that style. I think he's always going to be a rim runner, a transition guy, a 3-point shooter. I don't see him as a guy that's just gonna start creating his own shot and doing those things. So I think the Knicks should move on from Obi. I guess it doesn't have to be this season. They could do it during the trade deadline for, next year. But I would move on from Obi before the end of next season. I would move on from him. That way, that other team, they can decide whether or not they want to extend the qualifying offer, and they can do all of that there. They're getting a contract that's going to expire, and they have the flexibility to do whatever it is. So there, I think he is a good trade chip. You know what I mean? But if I'm the Knicks, I'm looking to move on from Obi in the offseason. And see if we can, who knows? The Knicks don't have anything in the draft.
Right.
Obi could be moved for a draft pick. You know what I'm saying? Or that team drafts someone and then Obi's traded afterwards or something like that. I could see that being a possibility, in this year's draft.
I'll say this. If I don't see no moving Obi, even if it's like, because I've heard talks about like 24 or 29 pick or whatever. But even if they did that, I think that's still adding to the treasure chest and maybe saying, other teams may value this player or this pick as opposed to trying to use Obi included in the treasure chest down the line. So I think it's a move for a bigger move down the line if they got into the draft. I can't see them getting into the draft and then utilizing that player that they draft this particular year.
Yeah. I do want to. I wanted to Audi 100. I think maybe you're a little bit behind everyone else because I already muted the highlights. So maybe if you move a little bit forward, you probably get it without the highlights. And you guys couldn't hear it, but there was a point in time when we first started the Obi segment, the highlights were playing in the background. But we already took care of that, Audi. So thank you anyway. Yeah. I don't know. Tony, I missed what you just said, Tony. I missed it.
Basically, I was saying, even if we moved Obi to get into this draft, I think that draft pick or that player is part of a bigger move moving forward. I don't think we move Obi, draft somebody, and that player is utilized currently
Right.
on our roster. You know what I mean? So it would be part of a bigger move, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that being part of a bigger move. Where do you see Obi fitting?
On another team?
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah. How many draft picks does Indiana have? I don't know. I'm gonna look that up and see because
I think they got 2 or 3 this year.
2 or 3 this year. Yeah, who knows?
And one of them is in that like 24 or 29. It might be 24 and 29. That might be why it's in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we'll see. But I do agree with you that I think, talking about Obi, it would probably be part of a bigger move. You know what I mean? Because I don't think the front office is looking to stand still. I think they're looking to make some moves this year.
Even if it was a Diorte, I'm not even sold on that because I think they value Grimes so much that I think they would be more willing to continue to see how Grimes progresses than saying, all right, let's bring Diorte in. You know what I mean? They was high on him 2 years ago. I don't know if they're still as high on him as they were. Right. And I don't know if they value him more than a Grimes. Yeah. So even that is tricky. So that's why I say if they get the pick, maybe that pick is more valuable for a bigger deal.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, there we have it. The chat, 60% says to keep Obi. 40% says to dump Obi. I mean, I like Obi, but I think the Knicks should move him. Really, I mean, I'm really saying to move him. I like the change that he brings as far as him, being able to play in transition and all of that, but I'd like to see what he can do in the league. You know what I mean? And I don't think that he's going to be able to see that come to fruition playing behind Randle. So move him to another team, let him do what he's gonna do, and then see, how you can build your team from there. That's what I
what I will say is, Sim, if we move Obi, we're taking away like our biggest chunk of athleticism, right? Now our only athleticism is our centers. You know what I mean? And Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims, as far as like verticality,
right.
like
That's true.
so that's a huge that's an area that we're lacking in anyway, and now we're taking away a large chunk of that. Even though the flip side argument is how much of his athleticism do we utilize?
Right.
Right.
I mean, but you move them, and then you're able to, you might bring in some more athletes. Somewhere else around, because you got to add a few more pieces. You might bring in more athletes. I don't know, but I agree though. He's really the only athlete, one of the only athletes you got on the team. I get it. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it for tonight. Went, almost, what are we at? 2 hours and 26 minutes, 2.5 hours. I didn't know it's going to go this long, but, it went this long because Big Bubba, he got on and wanted to keep talking. You know what I mean? I do want to announce that, and the details will come out tomorrow, where you can register tomorrow, because I will be on at 3:30 tomorrow, that we're doing a draft party at Legends. All right, on the 22nd, Thursday the 22nd, draft party at Legends. So hopefully we'll see you all there. I'll send out a registration so people can register. It's a free event, but we want you to come down, and we want you to register so we know how many people will be there. And then on July 1st, we're going to be doing a cookout. And, this time we're going to go to another part of the state. We're going to be up outside of Albany. So if you're in the Albany area, make sure you come down. It'll be 20 minutes outside of Albany in a little park called Riverside Park. Nice spot. We're going to have a little cookout. It'll be a little fee so we can pay for the food and stuff like that. And we're just going to go out there, hang out, chill, play some basketball, play some other games, probably do some, podcasting or something out there. We'll see if we can get that done, as long as we have electric and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be fun. All right. So anyone who wants to travel, it's just, 2 hours upstate. If you want to travel, or if anyone lives in the area, come check us out. It's going to be dope. That information to come out tomorrow. You'll be able to register tomorrow. So, yeah. Any comments or anything, Steph?
It was just a pleasure hopping on with you guys. It's been a minute. For those that don't know, Queen's Court will be monthly in June, July, not in August, in September, and then we'll be back weekly in October. I think it's June 26th. I'll be doing, me and the panel will be doing a recap, of the draft, and then also a preview of free agency, which will be the week after. So that's on June 26th.
Dope. Tony?
Man, it's always dope to have the gang back together. You know what I mean? It felt like an off season. You know what I mean? It's only been a couple of weeks for me, but glad to be back as always. Shout out to the chat. Your Blackest Time, and check me on Nicks and Bruises. That's it.
No doubt. B Baller said every time Sim defends Randle, a cash register mysteriously rings somewhere. I respect that. He said, he's trying to say Randle's paying my rent. Trust me, if he was paying my rent, I'd be defending him a whole lot harder. I wouldn't have anything negative to say. You know what I mean? Sure. Anything negative to say. Andre Walker said, Randle's a baller. If you add a player in between him and Brunson, he will have more space to operate. I agree with that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. Hopefully we see you at the cookout. You know what I mean? Travel upstate, or if you're upstate, come check us out.
Is Chef Zay cooking? Is he on the grill?
I don't know. He tried to burn down my house. He might burn up the park. You know what I'm saying? He might burn up the park.
All right, we're gonna have him reading books.
We'll get him, man. He probably will be cooking. Anyway, appreciate you, B-Baller. Appreciate it, man. We're out of here, folks. Be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow about 3:30. Peace.
This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place to tune in. So tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.